Hi, it's Lee Maxey, CEO at MindMax, and I'm delighted to be here with Vickie Cook, who's the Vice Chancellor for Enrollment and Retention Management at the University of Illinois Springfield. And I've known Vickie for many, many years.
Many years.
And I'm glad to have her here. And I think you are in the heart of the United States and dealing with some of the issues that are at the heart of the United States education system, which is students that are not completing or not getting the degree with some college, dealing with some great issues around instructional design. I know you guys have been some of the leaders in thinking about instructional design, but I'd like to start off with, how are you dealing with I'll call it the difficulty of budget constraint and all the things that you'd like to do. We'll get into all the things that you'd like to do, but
Yes.
how are you dealing with that?
It's very challenging. And I think part of it is advocacy, making sure that legislators know what the needs are, what the actual needs are, working with the foundation, grantors, really thinking about the full component around a budget, and then thinking about how do you stop doing things that are no longer effective and start doing things and reinvesting where you need to, right? And so really those budget constraints are as much about building out a new paradigm in thinking about budget and resources, both the financial resources and the human resources, and how we make those work more effectively for us.
Music to my ears. Portfolio, I'm a big believer in portfolio rationalization. Where do you do less? How do you stay in your lane?
Yes.
And one of the things, I'm curious if you've used this, but I often ask people, what are the consequences if you don't do something?
Yes.
Have you talked about that with the legislature? I mean, have you gone to that route saying, if we don't do this, here are some potential ramifications?
Yes, so that is part of our conversations. Sometimes I'm not sure that we're telling our story in a way that is easily understandable as an industry.
Yep.
And so I think that's something that we have to continue to work on, that we have to continue to find ways to tell our story, to be storytellers of not only what a university should do, but what can it do for the future, and what is the impact on a state or on the country economically if we don't do that, if we don't change and adapt and think about ourselves differently.
I think of Illinois as sort of a microcosm of the whole country,
Yes.
in the sense that you're not one state. You're a Chicago, and then you're a couple other somewhat cities, and then a lot of rural.
Yes.
And so, how do you think of serving that? I mean, I know serving the state, but you're looking at more than just the state.
Oh, of course, of
but
course.
How are you thinking about serving those various different needs?
Yeah, so the University of Illinois, of course, is a land grant institution. Our sister institutions in Urbana and also in Chicago are very different than our campus in Springfield. So UIS is a rural-serving institution. We are an institution that has a lot of online learning degrees. We serve students in Illinois and around the world. We talk often with our colleagues at Urbana and at Chicago and how their mission can help all of us think about how can we more effectively reach people by doing what we do best and staying true to our institutional missions. And I really think that's key for all of us in higher ed.
I agree.
Is what mission are you trying to accomplish? You can't be all things to all people. So how do you determine where your resources and your portfolio is actually built to help the students that you have as part of your mission to help?
That is one of the things I say related to that program or portfolio rationalization is we look at MindMax's responsibility or role is to help you better realize your mission.
Yes.
But part of that is to say, stay to the mission.
Stay to the mission. That's
in
right.
some cases. So
yes.
You guys have been innovators, leaders in instructional design and thinking about online and actually in leading the way for higher ed to embrace online. Where do you see it going
Yeah.
in relationship to ID, microcredentials,
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Well, AI is really the big thing. It's the game changer. It will change not just higher ed. It will change the world, and already truly has started to do so. So I think we have to be cognizant of that. Micro-credentials are so important. I was just talking with another colleague, and one of the things that concern me are all the students who've decided not to go to school this year because of the FAFSA problems. That's a huge concern. And how do we help those students then begin to get credentialed so that they can move forward with their lives, with their careers, with the next step of their journey? And if we don't pay attention to micro-credentialing piece, I think we will have not served these students well, because they have already been hit by the pandemic.
Right.
Now they're hit by FAFSA.
Right.
And then if we are not willing to step up and say we will help you with your educational needs to meet those goals and think outside the box, then we will have missed the mark.
Yeah. We do a lot with re-enrollment. And one of the things that we say to schools related to re-enrollment is they're not always ready to come back for a degree, and then having other pathways like micro-credentials may be, I'll call it, the priming the pump.
Yes.
Or to help them get momentum back into the routine or join the Peloton or whatever analogy you'd like. But to get that momentum back of, I can take classes, I can learn, I can perform as a student, and I can see how that fits in my life as it is now.
That's right.
So what are some of the things that you all are thinking about with the million or so students in Illinois who have some college and no degree?
Yeah, the whole some college and no credential is really where we're thinking.
Yep.
So a degree may not be the goal, right? It's that no credential. So how do we help them think about the credential? We've been working at the system level for all three campuses to actually find an inventory of what we already offer, because that's one of the first steps, right?
Right.
We all offer credentials and don't know what they are if we look at the whole portfolio. And so that was about a 9-month exercise on really thinking about how do we talk to students about what's the best pathway for them. And is that an undergraduate level? Is that a graduate level? Is that a continuing education level? So really starting to understand ourselves and where we are. And then the other thing that we're doing is talking a lot about barriers. What barriers do we have that shouldn't be there, that we haven't even thought of as barriers for this incoming group of students?
Yeah, that there's no question about that. They're not new students and they're not current students, so they fit into this in-between zone.
That's right.
How about working backwards from the employer? How have you worked backwards from who might be employing these people and connecting it to those micro-credentials?
Well, in some cases, employers have reached out to us, and I know you know this. They are looking for specific credentials, and they want help getting their current employees up to staff. But then there are a lot of employers who haven't reached out, and they don't know that they could be proactive in asking for assistance. We've reached out to a lot of our advisory groups who have employers and gotten feedback and tried to get some information from them about what is most important to you. Again, we can't be all things to all people. So you have to be really careful in how you devise the plan for micro-credentials related to that portfolio, your overall portfolio, which is why at the system level, we decided we needed to find out what we had.
A full inventory,
A full inventory, yes. Which was not nearly as easy as one would think it would be.
No, it's not. No, I've been talking about this with California schools for a while. And that it's not that there's people that don't want to share. It's institutional crossover is not that easy.
Well, and so much of it's decentralized. So you don't have it running through one centralized office. And so we found that in some of our colleges, they had some great opportunities for credentials that nobody knew about. They were best kept secrets. And that is not helpful either in trying to get the word out.
Right. I don't know if you've heard of AI. Have you ever heard of AI?
Of course, we all have, right?
So where are you seeing that? And I know Ray, who your
Yes, yes,
colleague is, Ray
yes.
Schroeder. Where do you see that playing a role now, and then where do you see it going in the future?
Yeah, it's, AI is certainly a game changer. It's changing higher ed, but it's changing every industry in the world. And I think that we have to really focus on helping our students start to think about AI differently. We spend way too much time talking about you can use AI to cheat. It's like that's a ridiculous
come on,
conversation.
let's get past it.
Let's get
exactly.
past it,
Yeah.
and let's start teaching our students how to utilize AI as a thought partner. Let's talk about how to utilize AI for large data sets. Let's talk about having AI do things for us to help us move to that next level. I think that using it for learning analytics is an excellent way for institutions to really think about employing AI well.
Yep.
I think there are so many possibilities, but I love the idea of really helping students. When we talk about math and teaching concepts in math, well, why don't we teach concepts in AI so that it's not about computer science, it's not about the programming, it's about when is AI going to help me, and does the situation require a human element, and how do we get that humanism into the situation to help the student. And so, but our students can't go out of our universities without a solid understanding of AI today, but more importantly, where does it go in the future?
Our son, freshman year last year, took a class writing with AI.
Yes, yes.
And I thought that was great.
Yes.
And really he talked about how to fit his voice in and how important that was.
Absolutely.
And that it was incomplete without a human component.
Without his brain activating the information that he needed to share. Yes.
Where are some things you think higher ed is heading? We got a lot of challenging, potentially two different directions after this election. But what are some of your thoughts about, like you said in the panel, some pitfalls or some concerns, and then some opportunities? What are some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think we have to start breaking free of legacy programming, legacy policies, legacy practices. So I think we really have to be cognizant of where we've been, absolutely, understand our history, and start moving toward the future and not be stuck in the past. So AI could probably figure that out for us. What do you think?
I think it could probably identify a few key factors.
But I think the biggest thing is that we have to not stop innovating. A lot of times we get very complacent in higher ed, and we have some people who are really doing great innovative things, and then others are just kind of coasting along for really good reasons. Number one was what you started with, lack of resources. And we can forget to be innovative in an environment where resources are so scarce. And we can't let ourselves fall into that.
Right. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I think the thing that keeps me up at night is worrying about the overregulation of higher education to the point where we can't serve students well. And so, I would really like for everyone who's listening to this to think about being an advocate for their students. And when you're talking about comments for things that are coming down through regulation, think about that student and how that regulation will impact that student.
Thank you, Vickie.
Thank you, Lee.
This is very nice.